Congratulations, you wrote a good CV and now it's time for the interview. Now, each company is different, but there's a certain structure that goes along with these interviews. It first starts off with you. Somebody has to read your CV. From that point, you'll get shortlisted amongst a number of other people with a good CV, followed by a quick intro call with somebody from HR. After that, what you'll usually follow is a quick tech assessment or a take-home tech assessment, which you'll be given up to a week to complete. On completion of the tech assessment, you'll be invited to a technical interview. The technical interview will be filled with people of a senior rank than the one that you're applying for, so that they can critique you. So you have to come prepared for those ones, because they're trying to catch you out. If you were given a take-home tech assessment, they will review your take-home tech assessment and identify all of the mistakes that you made or ask you things that you could have done better. Alternatively, what a lot of employers like to do is they like to do an in-person tech assessment or a virtual tech assessment whereby they question you and test you in real time. Those ones are way more challenging. From then on, there'll be a discussion with senior management or somebody from HR. And from this point onwards, they'll give you an offer and salary negotiations will take place at this point. After you get your offer and you complete your salary negotiations, you'll have to sign the contract and begin the journey as a member of their team. And that concludes the structure of the interviews. Now, if you're still inexperienced and don't know what an interview is, I'm going to explain to you what it means. First things first is that getting an interview is an accomplishment in and of itself, because these companies don't just interview anybody who's anybody. They only interview a list of candidates which they've shortlisted. That means from a number of applicants, they chose you amongst a few other individuals. That's something to be proud of. And what it means as well is that they believe in you. So if you're somebody who suffers from insecurities or low self-esteem, understand that you didn't get to that position by luck. You got there through your efforts and the work that you've put in to make your CV stand out, and that you're there for a reason. Even if you aren't the perfect ideal candidate, the employer is willing to take a gamble on you, and that's why they're giving you airtime. They wouldn't be paying people to interview you if they didn't believe in you. So even if you're not the perfect candidate, here's a shot, an opportunity for you to grab this opportunity with both hands. So the first thing you need to do when you get given such good opportunities is immediately go back to the job post and start preparing. Start studying, start getting yourself ready to execute an excellent presentation and convince them of your superior value. One thing to also be cognizant of is that if an employer advertised that post and that post had a certain amount of money in terms of salary shown, it means that you are potentially worth that amount of money, and that is a metric that you should use when it comes to setting your bare minimum, because your value has been confirmed by the market. This company knows how much you're worth and they're willing to give you the opportunity. So you should also recognize your worth and know that this is the bare minimum that I'm willing to accept going forward. Interviewing is a skill, and naturally, if you're not somebody who's been practicing how to interview and has been actively interviewing, you're not going to be very good at it. You're not going to know exactly when to say it, how to say it, and how to say it in a convincing manner to convince the employer to pick you. So whenever you get an interview, you have to ensure that you make the most out of that situation. You learn as much as possible, you prepare ahead of time to the best of your abilities, and you learn and you practice and practice and practice, because that's the number one way for you to get really good at interviewing. So ensure that you prepare ahead of time and that you study the employer. It's very important, because you want to make this one shot that you have count. From then on, a skill that you need to improve upon is knowing how to negotiate a salary. Because if you're not clued up as to what your actual value is, employers will gladly take advantage of you and pay you less than what you're worth. Also understand that getting a job is a winner takes all scenario. There's oftentimes hundreds of candidates vying for one position, and only one person is going to get that position. Make sure that's you. Last but definitely not least is a super powerful technique called tag teaming. Basically, what it is that you and your friend will apply to the same exact jobs. Hopefully, the both of you get in, and when that happens, one will learn from the other's mistakes and will get valuable insights as to what type of questions are going to be asked and how to prepare. Now, I'm going to provide you with some in depth tips to help you get better at interviewing. Tip number one, arrive early, especially virtually, because I've come to realize that when it comes to virtual meetings, a 3 minute delay is absolutely massive, because in those 3 minutes, people are waiting and looking at the clock. It's way more apparent when you do not arrive on time when it comes to virtual interviews. Not saying that it's okay to not come on time in person. Obviously, do the same in person. It's just extremely more apparent when it's done virtually. Another pro tip is be confident. So if you're more inexperienced, it's not going to be easy for you to be confident, because where's all the confidence going to come from when you don't know what you're doing, right? However, when you prepare ahead of time, it helps you be more confident. And if you've been doing self-improvement, picking up new skills, understanding the tech stack, and building things that are of value to the world that you can showcase to them, it'll help you with your self-confidence. Now, the reason why I emphasize confidence so much is that when you're confident about yourself, it affects the way others perceive you. I've actually managed to get a job partly due to me being self-confident. It convinced a very well experienced person to take a gamble on me, and they mentioned this to other colleagues of them that they hired me in part due to confidence. That's how powerful confidence is. If you think highly of yourself, other people will too. So be confident. Also, please be respectful during these interviews, because these people who are interviewing, they're judging you and asking themselves what it would be like to work with you. And if you're being rude, they're already assuming the worst of you. So be respectful, and don't necessarily do it for the sake of the interview. Do it because you are that type of person. But being respectful doesn't mean that you're gonna kiss people's butts. You want to be respectful, but you don't want to be a doormat. Don't let people push you around or belittle you. Have a backbone, and in that way, you're gonna garner respect. Especially if you're trying to set up a situation where you're gonna get paid higher than the average person. They'll only do that if they respect you and they value you. And being pushover is not gonna get you respect. You also can never be desperate. If you show any signs of desperation to the employer, it automatically highlights a red flag, because why would somebody of value who's demanding a higher than average salary be desperate? That doesn't make sense. You'd only be demanding a higher than average salary if it means that you're of the caliber and that your skills match that level of compensation and that there's demand for your services. So showing to them any example to the contrary, for example being desperate, is an immediate red flag. Not only will desperation give off a bad vibe, but being desperate will result in you accepting lowball offers. So by the time it comes to negotiate salaries, you're not going to have a backbone when they try to disrespect you financially. And speaking of red flags, do not lie about what you know and the information in your head. I've been burned so many times trying to be clever and trying to be sneaky, saying things that I don't actually know, and then being exposed in real time for not knowing them. It's not advisable for you to be saying you know X when you don't know X, because remember, the people who, especially the ones during the technical interviews, they're going to be more experienced than you, and if you claim to know things you do not know, they're going to drill down and expose you. So do not lie about what you know. Be transparent and say, hey, if there's something you don't know, just raise your hand, say, hey, I don't know this yet, but obviously I can do a quick Google search and figure it out. Another major thing not to do is lie about your salary. It can be tempting to say to the employer that you earn more than what you actually do. However, the vast majority of times, the employer will ask you for your payslip, or at least it's like that in my country. In other countries, there's laws and regulations against this. However, in my country, you can't get away with it. They're gonna ask you for your payslip, and yes, you could do fraud or whatever, but I do not condone fraud. I'd rather be truthful and negotiate solely on the basis of what the market is willing to pay. Just be honest about what you're earning and negotiate solely on the basis of what the market is willing to pay. If this employer that you're heading to, if they're going to try to lowball you based on what your current earnings are, let's say you're earning below market and they say, oh, we'll only give you a little bit above what you're currently earning, that's not even an employer that you want to be seated with or work for. So I suggest being honest. And with regards to practicing in order to get better, it starts off with preparation. And then it's a matter of recording every single mistake that you make during this interview, every single critique that you get, in order for you to get better. After that, it's just a matter of addressing these critiques and issues that were identified. And when it comes to preparing ahead of time, it's simply a matter of figuring out exactly what they do that you've done before so that you can quickly convey the value that you can deliver to them immediately, and then studying the tech stack so that by the time they question you on certain topics, you can quickly rise to the occasion and alleviate any concerns that they may have regarding your ability to integrate well into the team. When it comes to salary negotiations, you not being able to present a payslip is going to be a red flag to most employers. Not all, but most, because many of them are trying to use your current payslip as a way of lowballing you and keeping you at the current income that you're earning. So be cognizant of that. A good employer, though, won't be asking you what your current earnings are or your payslip altogether. However, many employers out there do. So there's something to be cautious of. And the best way and the most objective way to negotiate a salary, I've come to realize, is to always go according to what the market is willing to pay. Because if now they ask you for your payslip and you're being paid below market and they try to lowball you because you're being paid below market, the only real defense that is reasonable is to point at what the market is willing to pay. That's why I'm advising this. If you want to substantially earn more than what you're earning now, just point towards what the market is willing to pay. Say, hey, here's the evidence presented to them. The employers oftentimes already know what the market is willing to pay. They're just trying to be cheeky, and stand your ground. And throughout this whole entire ordeal of sending a CV, going to the interview, at every single step, you need to be giving 110% because it's winner takes all. If there's 200 candidates who applied for one job, guess who's getting that job? The best person of those 200. That has to be you. You have to be giving everything, preparing, presenting, upskilling, ensuring that you rise above the circumstance. The next bit of advice that I'm about to share with you is an absolute game changer. And what it entails is that you and your friend or friends are going to apply to the same group of companies. When you and your friends make it through one by one, the first person who gets interviewed will share the expertise and knowledge, not expertise. The first person who gets interviewed will share what they've learned with the next person, which will make the second person's interview so much smoother and easier. I've managed to land a very good job at a very prestigious company thanks to this method here. My friend and I, we both applied to the same company and we both helped each other get this job. This tag teaming method is an absolute game changer.